You check your bank account before you buy groceries. Not because you don't know what's in there. You check it because some deeply buried part of you just doesn't trust the number you saw last time. On paper, you make decent money. You're doing fine. You're not reckless. You're not buying things you can't afford. You pay your bills on time. You are not the financial cautionary tale your parents warned you about. And yet, there's this low, constant hum underneath everything. A kind of financial static that never fully turns off. It's there when you swipe your card at the pump. It's there when a text from your landlord pops up, before you've even opened it. And it's definitely there, 2 in the morning, when your brain decides, for no reason at all, that this is the perfect time to start doing frantic math about your future. But here's the part that's going to sound strange. That feeling, it has almost nothing to do with how much money you actually have. I know how that sounds. But stay with me, because once you see what's actually happening beneath the surface of your relationship with money, the whole thing stops feeling like an exhausting mystery. It stops feeling like there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And the path forward, the one that actually leads to something you could honestly call freedom, gets a whole lot simpler than anyone in personal finance ever tells you. So, let's talk about what nobody's really explaining. Most people think money is a math problem. Spend less than you earn, save the difference, invest it, and wait. Technically, yeah, that's the whole game. If it were only about math, everyone with a spreadsheet would be financially free by 40. But you already know it's not that simple, because you've probably tried the spreadsheet, maybe more than once. You downloaded the sleek budgeting app. You did the intense 2-week burst of tracking every single coffee. And then life happened. A car repair, a family emergency, a slow week at work. And suddenly, the system fell apart. Not because you're lazy or undisciplined, but because the system itself was never actually built for the very thing that keeps derailing you. Here is the belief I want to gently take apart. The idea that struggling with money means you lack knowledge or willpower. That if you just tried a little harder, read one more book, or watched one more video, you'd finally crack the code. That belief is everywhere in personal finance. And honestly, it's quietly cruel. It puts the entire weight of a massive systemic problem squarely on your shoulders alone. It completely ignores something cognitive researchers have known for over a decade, something that barely makes it into mainstream financial advice, because it doesn't fit neatly into a checklist. Your ability to make good financial decisions isn't fixed. It changes, depending on how much mental pressure you are under. Let that sit for a second, because it's the core of the entire issue. You are not bad at money, but your brain, under financial pressure, temporarily becomes worse at the exact cognitive skills you need to escape that pressure. It's not a character flaw. It's closer to a design flaw in how human stress and cognition interact. And once you understand that, you can stop fighting yourself and start fixing the actual mechanism. There's a concept from behavioral economics called the scarcity mindset. Now, this isn't the vague, trendy self-help version, the abundance versus scarcity thing you hear in motivational videos. This is something highly specific and far more useful. Researchers who study decision-making found that when people are preoccupied with not having enough, whether that's money, time, or even food, their brains automatically start doing something called tunneling. Your attention narrows hard around the immediate shortage. You become incredibly, almost superhumanly focused on solving today's urgent problem, which sounds like a strength. And in the short term, it is. But it comes at a massive cost. And the cost is everything outside the tunnel. One widely cited study looked at farmers before and after harvest. Same people, same baseline intelligence, just completely different levels of financial pressure, depending on the season. Before the harvest, when money was tight, those farmers performed on cognitive tests roughly the same way people do after losing an entire night of sleep. Same brain, same person, just a different amount of financial pressure sitting on top of it, quietly eating into the mental bandwidth they had left for everything else. Think about what that actually means for you. It means the version of you standing in the grocery store, doing the anxious math about whether you can afford the cart you're holding, is not operating with full access to your own intelligence. You're operating on a cognitive loan. The stress is borrowing bandwidth from your judgment, and it's not giving it back until the pressure eases. That's why the budgeting app didn't stick. It's not that the app was bad. It's that you were trying to build a complex, long-term system, using the exact mental resource that financial stress temporarily steals from you. You don't fix a scarcity mindset by trying harder from inside the tunnel. You fix it by reducing the pressure first, so your brain gets its bandwidth back. Only then do the good decisions start happening almost on their own. But first, there's a second layer to this, and it's even less talked about. Every single one of us grew up absorbing something psychologists call a money script. It's basically an unconscious belief about money that got installed in you so early and so quietly that you've probably never once questioned it. You just assume it's true, the same way you assume the sky is blue. Maybe your money script is that money is dangerous, that people who have a lot of it become greedy or fake. So, on some level, you subconsciously sabotage your own progress to avoid becoming that person. Maybe it's the opposite. Money equals worth. So every purchase is secretly a way of proving something to people who probably aren't even paying attention. Or maybe your script is that talking about money is stressful or shameful. So you avoid opening your banking app the exact same way you'd avoid a deeply uncomfortable confrontation. None of these beliefs were chosen by you on purpose. They were absorbed from watching your parents argue about bills, or seeing a relative go through bankruptcy, or hearing one offhand comment at a birthday party when you were 9 years old that somehow lodged itself permanently into your nervous system. Here's why this matters more than any budgeting technique. You can build the most flawless financial plan on paper, and it will fail every single time. It runs into an invisible script you don't know you have. If your unconscious belief is that you don't deserve financial ease, you will find a way, without ever consciously deciding to keep yourself just short of it, not through big, dramatic mistakes, through small, quiet ones. The subscription you forget to cancel, the impulse purchase right after you finally build up a safety net, the job offer with better pay that you talk yourself out of at the last minute. This isn't about blame. It's the exact opposite. It's relief, because it means the thing that's been getting in your way was never a lack of intelligence or effort. It was just an invisible script running in the background. And invisible things lose their power the very moment you can finally see them. Now, let's talk about the other side of this. Because it's not just about the people who feel like they never have enough. It's also about the people who get more money and somehow still feel like it's not working. You've probably noticed this in your own life, even in small ways. You get the raise you were chasing for a year, and for about 3 weeks, life feels genuinely lighter. And then, somehow, the feeling fades. You're right back to that same low hum of not quite enough. Except now, your expenses have quietly grown to match the new number. This isn't a coincidence, and it isn't a personal failure. It's a documented psychological pattern called hedonic adaptation. Our brains are remarkably good at recalibrating to whatever our new normal is, good or bad. There's actual research on lottery winners that shows this in a pretty stark way. People who win life-changing amounts of money experience an immediate spike in happiness, but over time, their reported life satisfaction drifts right back toward roughly where it was before they won. The mind treats the new wealth as the new baseline almost immediately, and then measures everything against that, instead of where they started. There's a related pattern, named after the 18th century philosopher Denis Diderot. He wrote an essay about receiving a beautiful new dressing gown as a gift. He loved it, but almost immediately, he noticed his old furniture started to look incredibly shabby next to it. So, he replaced a chair to match the gown, but then the chair made his desk look worn out. So he replaced the desk. Then the desk made the walls look dated. So he redecorated the entire room. One nice new thing didn't satisfy him. It made everything else around it look insufficient by comparison. It triggered a spiral of endless upgrades that left him, in his own words, feeling far less content in his newly beautiful study than he had in his old, cluttered one. Researchers later named this the Diderot effect. If you've ever bought one new thing, a new phone, a new pair of shoes, a new piece of furniture, and suddenly felt like everything else you owned desperately needed replacing too, you've lived this firsthand. It's how the brain's comparison machinery naturally works, and almost nobody warns you about it before it quietly reshapes your spending habits for years. This is exactly why chasing a specific dollar amount rarely delivers the peace of mind people expect. There's a term for this: the arrival fallacy. It's the fixed belief that once you hit a certain target, a specific salary, a savings goal, a paid-off house, you'll finally be able to exhale. Sometimes you do, briefly. But the mind resets the baseline almost immediately and starts scanning for the next gap. If your entire strategy for peace of mind is a single number on a screen, you're building your safety on a goalpost that moves the second you touch it. So, here's where it all comes together. This is the turning point. Financial freedom was never really about the number. The number is real, and it absolutely matters. But what changes is what the number is for. It's not the finish line. It's not the definitive proof that you're finally safe or finally worthy or finally done proving yourself to the world. The number is simply a tool that reduces the pressure sitting on your nervous system, enough that your brain can stop tunneling and start thinking clearly again. That's it. That's the entire psychological function of money. It is bandwidth. It's the thing that lets you make your next decision from a place of clarity instead of static. Once you realize that, the whole approach flips. You stop trying to white-knuckle your way through a rigid budget, using willpower that stress has already depleted. Instead, you start building small structures that lower the pressure first. Here is what that looks like in real life. Not high-minded theory. Actual practice you can start this week. Move 1. Build a bandwidth buffer. The first move isn't a massive budget overhaul or a hyper-aggressive investment plan. It's building a bandwidth buffer. This is a small fund, even just $500 to $1,000. Set aside purely to absorb life's minor shocks: the flat tire, the vet bill, the unexpected copay. It sounds too small to matter, which is exactly why it works. It's not there to make you rich. It's there to pull you out of the tunnel. When a surprise expense hits and you don't have to scramble, your brain gets a massive chunk of its bandwidth back instantly. Move 2. Name your money script. Sit with this question honestly. What did money mean in the house you grew up in? Was it a source of fights, silence, pride, or fear? You're not doing this to diagnose your childhood. You're doing it because an unnamed pattern controls you. But a named pattern can be managed. Once you can say out loud, I think I avoid checking my accounts because growing up, money conversations always turned into conflict. You've already loosened its grip. Move 3. Remove the decision entirely. Stop relying on willpower to make the same good choice over and over. Automating a small transfer to your savings, the exact day your paycheck hits, does more for your wealth than any amount of raw discipline. It takes the choice out of the moment when your bandwidth is most likely to be borrowed by a stressful day. Move 4. Understand true compound growth. Patience stops feeling like a sacrifice when you understand the math. If you invest $200 a month, starting at age 25, assuming an average annual return of around 7%, a historically reasonable long-term average for a diversified portfolio after inflation, you'd have somewhere around $500,000 by 65. If you waited just 10 years to start, at age 35, you'd end up with roughly half of that amount. Consistency over a long runway beats intensity crammed into a short one every single time. The monthly size matters far less than the time you give it. Move 5. Redefine wealth on your own terms. If you don't define wealth for yourself, you will end up borrowing someone else's definition. For some, wealth is a paid-off house and total quiet. For others, it's the freedom to take a lower-paying job that doesn't destroy their mental health. For someone else, it's simply never having to choose between gas and groceries again. If you don't anchor your own definition, you'll keep measuring your progress against a moving target, built by advertising and other people's highlight reels. Here's what I want you to walk away with. More than any specific number or study, you are not behind because you're bad with money. You feel behind because you were handed a stressed-out nervous system, an inherited belief system you never chose, and a psychological setup that quietly moves the finish line every time you get close to it. None of that is your fault, but all of it is workable. You don't need to overhaul your entire life this month. You don't need the perfect plan, the ideal income, or some dramatic cinematic turning point to start. You just need a small buffer to lower the pressure, a moment of honesty about where your beliefs actually came from, a system that doesn't rely on willpower at 3 a.m, and a definition of enough that belongs to you and nobody else. Financial freedom was never about becoming a different kind of person, disciplined, unbothered, and endlessly patient. It's about understanding the very human, very ordinary psychology that's been shaping your decisions all along, and gently working with it, instead of constantly fighting yourself. That's the whole shift. Not more hustle, not more restriction, just a little more clarity about what was actually happening underneath the numbers the entire time. You're not starting over. You're just starting to see clearly. And from here, it really does get simpler. Gentle pause. This is Sophia. And if you want to save your hard-earned money and want to be rich, make sure to subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching.